So the first one I'm going to look at is a mountain lion cougar by Sabrina. This is the reference photo from wildlifereferencephotos.com, and it's a great reference photo. If anything, I'd say it's lacking in contrast or a real direction of light. The light is just, quite flat on there, which normally doesn't give a very punchy three-dimensional looking subject, but you can alter it just quite easily to give it some more vibrancy and light. I've just done that in the levels in Photoshop, just by pulling the light one up a bit and the dark one down a bit. So let's take a look at the drawing. So it's a really lovely drawing. As I said, it's 10" by 8" pastel matte and various pastel pencils as well. So a really lovely drawing. Let's jump straight into it and I'll make a few adjustments, but remember, it's totally my opinion. The artist and you guys can all disagree with it. Everyone sees different things that they'd want to do with it as well. So this is just my thoughts on the matter, and as artists, as I said, we all think different things, and that's what makes it really interesting. We can see the same subject and come up with a different piece of art. So the first thing I would say to do is to kind of make it look more contrasty. So just by making the darks a bit darker, the lights a bit lighter, just like I did with the reference photo, that gives us that, which gives a bit more drama to it. I could also adjust the lighting even more. Okay, so if I put a bit of a directional lighting on there, if I was thinking the light was coming perhaps a little bit to the front and above, so you'd get more lighting on this side, the right hand side as we're looking at it, a bit less on the left hand side. So you can see I'm just picking out some lights where I think it's going to be. So once again, that's really easy. So if I show you the before and after, okay, as I said, lovely drawing just as it is. I think that gives it a bit more contrast to it. And if you're standing back from there, if say you was in a gallery further away, that would get your attention more quickly. And to make the lights look even brighter, more vibrant, we could darken the background even more. Okay, so that's the full effect of it. So if we look at the before and after then, so there's really very little extra done to it. It's just trying to think about, improving the light, perhaps making the light have more drama to it, making the subject stand out a bit more, but others may well prefer it like this. One thing I would say, the difference when we look at the two, so if I look at the reference photo, that's an adult mountain lion, adult cougar. Okay, when I look at the drawing, this looks more like a cub to me. Now the difference is the length of the fur. When we see this, we can see it's very compacted, short, bristly looking fur. When we look at the drawing, it looks more like wavy, longer fur. So let's cut a bit out and let me see what area I'll pick. If I pick, say, this area here around the eye and crop that out, okay, and I'll drop that now on the cub. See the difference? It's roughly the same size. Let's make it a bit bigger so the eye is roughly the same size. But if you see the areas, pick a color, you can see even around here, there, let's have a look like this. See all the waviness around here, the longer hairs. And here, when we look at the same part, these are just like small dots around here as well. We can see it's more like stippled areas, very short fur that we can see, whereas it's much longer up here. And that's what's giving the different look to it. That's what's giving us that, adult eye to more of a cub. Okay, so you need to then make sure your strokes are very small when you're doing this adult looking fur, very small, not long wavy lines. Okay, so that's the only thing I would say there. The other thing would be on the whiskers that we've got coming out. Let me just look. When we see the whiskers here, they're very finely in, especially the ones above the eyes. Okay, above the brow, they're really fine. When we look here, they're quite thick white lines, pure white lines. What I would do here, especially on these ones on the side, I would actually then use a coloured pencil. I very rarely use a coloured pencil for anything other than super fine whiskers. So you could sharpen that up really finely and then just lightly put in these whiskers, especially on this side, with a very fine stroke. The ones on the right hand side as we're looking at the screen, they're perfectly fine, they look okay. It's just these are standing out so much more. And then if you wanted to, if you did it with pastel like it is now, you could actually just sharpen the pencil a bit more, very light pressure, and then you can blend them out a bit with your fingers. Okay, just to solve that. If you do it with coloured pencil, obviously you won't be able to blend, but you can make them super fine. So hopefully that's given you an extra tip, Sabrina, and thank you very much for sending your artwork in. The next critique, this is by Chris, wonderful horse picture. This is the reference photo from a free photo site, and the photographer is Brent Schultz. So this is, let me show you the drawing. Just a really lovely scene, lovely drawing. Love that black in the background as well. So it's on dark grey pastel mat, and we've got pan pastels for the underlayers and then pencils for the details, and this is A3 in size. Okay, so let's take a look through it. As I said again, it's only my opinion. The first thing that catches my eye is the body line on the side. Okay, because it's quite light, the background's really dark, that's attracting my attention, that curve, especially going into the bottom here. So I immediately look at the heads, but then my eye is drawn over here. Now that's why the photographer has cropped it. With the body going out, it's now of less interest, and the tonal value is very similar to the floor, so that's all kind of receding away, and the main interest then are the heads, without a doubt. The arc going up at the neck and then around the heads. With the drawing, I'm looking at that line. I'm also thinking then, when it's framed, that's very close to the edge. The mount is probably going to dissect it or cut right on that edge, so it's going to touch, or it's going to be too close. So I would probably crop that out. If you wanted to keep it in, then I would blur it. Okay, so if we just blur that edge, you see it there? By blurring it, your eye is not attracted to it as much. Same with the body over here, when I blurred it compared to when it's not blurred. Okay, so blurring the body would help it, and preferably do the both and cut that body as well. But up to the artist. The other thing I'm thinking is lacking that contrast that we see in lots of pieces of art. Now this is definitely just my opinion, because that's it a bit brighter, but you may like it more subdued. Okay, so personal preference. I like it a bit brighter because I know where I'm going with this. Okay, so if we keep it a bit brighter, let me get rid of these layers because I'm going to show you something on top. So let's just duplicate that layer now. Let's call it shadows. There, and I'll get the reference photo, get that out of the way. Okay, so if we looked at the shadows, we use the burn tool, burning the shadows in. That's too big, let's make it a bit smaller, just to give you a bit of an example of getting more of a three-dimensional form. So if we looked at the shadows and started darkening a few things down, so that's a bit more in shadow. Around here, around the eyes, a bit more in shadow. The body here could definitely be more in shadow, and especially down here, so we're not looking at it as much. This is very basic type of Photoshop stuff going on. And as I've said numerous times, I'm not a Photoshop expert, so all you Photoshop experts, forgive me for doing everything so basic here. Okay, so that's a bit of shadow done. Let's have a look at the bit more here, perhaps on the neck, down in here. I'm trying to get it to be more, have more shape, more form, make that less distracting, even more down there. Okay, so let's take the shadow off and have a look how it's looking so far. So that's the difference that bit of shadow's made. Perhaps a bit more here. Okay, so opposite of the shadows, now we've done that, let's have a think about some highlights. So let's duplicate the layer again, call it lights. Now obviously this is what you want to be thinking of doing, either with your reference beforehand, you know, or trying it out, or doing small sketches and then trying these lighting effects on it. You don't want to be really doing this at the end of your drawing and finding out, oh, I wish I'd gone lighter, because sometimes even though we've got that ability to add some extra layers and brightness with pastels, we want to try and get it right as early on as we can. Okay, so that's really basic, but I've just put some of the lights in. So if we take that off now, right, so if I take off the lights, you can see that's the difference it makes to the form. That's it without the shadows as well. So that's the lights off, the shadows off, and then let's look at it. So that's what I've got at the end, and that's how the drawing came in. I did ask Chris if his artwork looked like the photo he showed sent in. He said yes, it was extremely close to it. So I would say don't go so dark with the underlayer, or don't be afraid to really boost up the highlights to create the shape, the form, the lighting effect. You don't have to go as bright as this, you know, you can go a lot more subdued with it. It's totally up to you, but I just want to give different options. And then finally I would also have either given more space to the body, okay, to take it away from when you're framing it, or get that body out of it as well, something like that, so that you're not looking at it. Okay, so it's so that the eye, the head and the eye is more on the rule of thirds for composition. Rule of thirds down here, we've got the foal's head as well, so we could crop it like that. Do you see? So that's more rule of thirds type of composition. Okay, so Chris, thank you for sending that in. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope these two critiques have helped people as well. Now if you're looking for demonstrations, my full-length tutorials, at the end of the video I'll tell you all about my Patreon art channel. Just wanted to quickly mention my Patreon channel for those looking for even more in-depth art instruction. It's packed full of pastel videos, oil videos as well, and those videos are being added to new ones every single month. I have videos for the complete beginner that have never done pastels or oils before with just limited supplies, and I take you from the very first blocking in all the way through to the final detailed drawings and paintings. I've also got some really unusual subjects as well, and in all of my videos I always take you through all the details. You see everything I do, how I create my work. But it's not just for beginners, it's also for novices, and I also show the best artwork that I've ever done as well. And this particular elephant video spans 6 hours, so you know you're going to see tons and tons of details, tips and techniques. And as mentioned, I've got lots of oil videos on there too, so there really is something for everybody, and you get access to hundreds of hours worth of videos for just $4. Now over 1,000 members strong. Hope to see you there soon.